Hello, welcome. Why use this ShinyBox ribbon microphone for acoustic guitar and nylon guitar, as I did in my last video? I'm going to talk about why I chose this mic, and I'm not going to hang around in the intro. We're going to go straight to the B-roll without a lengthy comedic personality-filled pause. Lovely stuff. Right, this is the ShinyBox 46MXL. They made a couple of different versions of this. There was the MX, which is discontinued, and they made an MXC, which has a Cinemag transformer, and this is the MXL, which has a Lundahl transformer. As you will have spotted, the last letter of the item code of the model is refers to the transformer. So this one has, apparently the Lundahl has a little bit more in the top end. It's a little more extended in the frequency range. I initially bought this for recording vocals. I had a vocalist who was particularly sibilant, and I thought that this would help. It actually was not great for her voice. That doesn't mean it's not good for other voices, but it wasn't great on hers. But I loved it on acoustic, so I kept it, and I do use it most of the time now. I've got small diaphragm condensers, I've got large diaphragm condensers, such as this Bock 195, this one here. This is great on acoustic as well, but there's something about this which just has a bit more mojo, and it doesn't seem to, I hate mojo, by the way. What is that? Indefinable, nonsensical, I can't describe what it is, but I like it. Probably means it's kind of in your head, and that may well be the case. But what I do know is that when I record with a ribbon mic like this, I do a lot less to the track in the mix. I find myself EQing less, compressing less. On the track that you heard there, there's no EQ other than some low-end roll-off. That speaks to me. That means more to me than like listening to it in isolation. In the mix, two recordings. They go to it's in a track stack, so it's double tracked. They're panned hard, and I'm just hammering the shit out of the Martin. That is why there's no compression needed, because I'm playing so loud that the guitar cannot get louder. So the guitar is basically working within a very narrow dynamic range, because I'm playing it as loud as the guitar will go. So it's not compression, but it's certainly dynamically limited by the limits of the guitar. So there's no need to compress it. If it were more dynamic, then I might do that. But for this track, no need. On the nylon strung guitar, I won't lie, it was convenient. That was not convenient. It's what was set up, and I knew that it was going to be okay. Again, with the nylon, especially when you play with a pick, you do get some pretty snappy transients, and it could be quite bright, and the word's not thin, but what is it? Sort of, there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. So again, the ribbon's a good choice there, but in the case of that guitar, since it was going to be a kind of a solo part rather than an accompaniment, which is what the acoustic is. The acoustic I knew was going to be panned hard left and right, so it leaves space down the middle for the guitars, and in this case for the drums, because the drums are mostly in mono, but that's another story. But with the nylon guitar, that's a solo or a lead part, and I didn't want the same kind of thing going on there. So what I did was I connected the pickup into a preamp and the mic as well. So the mic is mono, the DI is mono, but they are panned probably about half the way, left and right. And that gives it a little bit of movement. It's probably not good practice in some cases, but for this, I don't mind if it moves around. And the great thing is that there's a different dynamic response between the pickup and the microphones. And what that means is that the levels are not going up and down entirely evenly. There's a slight difference which you can perceive when you hear it, especially with headphones, as like just sort of moving around a bit, or a bit more three-dimensional. The pickup and the microphone pick up strings differently as well. Like the piezo might emphasize certain strings, they might be a little louder than others, whereas the pickup won't do that. Then it will be more like it sounds in the room. So again, there's that difference, which just gives it a bit more of an interesting sound in the mix, and for me that's fine. Plus I smothered it in delay anyway, so I mean, who cares? But anyway, so other reasons to use this microphone or a ribbon like it: off-axis rejection. It's a figure of 8, like all ribbons are, because there's a ribbon and it picks up on both sides. So in this case, it's me playing the guitar in front of it, and behind it is an empty part of the room with some acoustic panels, so there's not too much in the way of reverberation coming back. It's quite easy to control that because it's in a straight line. You can even see it as you're playing. You get a kind of visual sense of what the mic is picking up, and it rejects what's to the side, so it is almost completely deaf to what's at the side, which when you're recording yourself in a studio, as I am, is useful because you have a computer here and that's making noise. It's making, I mean, it's a Mac Pro, it's pretty quiet, but there is some noise that comes off it. So I just turn perpendicular. My computer's kind of here on the ground. And if I'm at 90, if the mic's at 90 degrees to the, so I'm checking the screen here because I can sort of see roughly where it is. If we're roughly at 90 degrees, it's going to reject a lot of the computer noise, and it will also reject the door, which is there. I mean, I don't get too much noise through the door, but it all helps, you know. And if you have a large room, then you can position yourself in it, get lots of guitar, and then choose which part of the room you want to pick up, because the mic, the back of the mic, is going to be pointing into the room. So you'll have some choices to make over what your whole recording is going to sound like. And I love that. I think that's great. Another plus for ribbon mics is if instead of having front and back like that, you turn them to the side, then they're picking up the sides like that. And you put a mic down the middle pointing at you, then you have a mid-side recording setup. I might do another video on mid-side recording. That's a good idea. Being able to do mid-side recording is super helpful. Really lovely if you have like an exposed, maybe like solo kind of part, and you want some stereo width, but you really need a solid center as well. It's great for that rather than just two mics in stereo. Okay, so reasons why a ribbon mic like this might not be the ideal choice for you. It might be. It might be perfect, it might be all you ever need, but there are some limitations to consider, and these are they. They tend to require a lot of gain and therefore a good preamp. If you connect a ribbon to a budget interface, you may find that you're having to really crank the gain because the output from the microphone is relatively low. You have to crank the gain and things can get noisy. They do not perform anything like a condenser microphone does. So a good preamp is a requirement. You'll need to have control of your recording environment because they pick up the back just as much as they pick up the front. So whilst if you can pull some acoustic panels in, you can control that, or if you have a lovely room that you want to make the most of and get that onto your recordings, then that's an advantage with these as well. But if you can't control it, if it's noisy, that kind of thing, worth considering whether or not it's going to be the right choice for you. Obviously, if you have it close to the guitar or close to the singer, it's going to pick them up more than it's going to pick up what's behind. But it is a consideration, so your acoustic comes into it, as it does with all microphones, but to a different extent. While they're versatile and they sound great, they don't do everything. So if you're looking for bright, airy pop vocals, these are probably not the choice for that. I mean, maybe you can get there with the EQ and some processing, but generally speaking, it wouldn't be the way that I'd go. So that's a consideration. If you just want it for getting great, authentic, vintagey, chunky, fat guitar sounds, absolutely brilliant. But if you're looking for sort of pristine pop vocals, as I say, perhaps not the best choice. On a physical level, it's not really fair to say that all ribbon mics are fragile. I mean, if you've ever held a Coles 4038, you'll know what I'm talking about. But ideally, you don't want to be dropping them, because that ribbon that's in here is thin and it's sort of kept tense, and it can be stretched. It can also be stretched if you plug in an XLR with phantom power at the preamp, and one pin makes contact slightly before the other. You'll send the 48 volts of phantom power across the ribbon and probably kill the mic. They do require a little bit of care, like you're not supposed to store them on their side. I mean, I have done that and haven't had any problems, but they are maybe treat them with a little bit of care. So that's the pros and cons of recording with a ribbon mic. I don't have any connection with ShinyBox. There's nothing like that going on here. I bought it full price years ago from KMR, and I do find myself coming back to it, using it more and more and more on acoustic guitar because it sounds so good. Other ribbon mics probably do just as good a job, although I did try a cheap SE, what was it, SE R1, and I hated it. It was supposed to be like a Royal 121 with the ultimate ribbon mic for guitar amps, and it sounded awful. It was woolly, dark, muddy, awful. Not recommended. Been discontinued. I looked it up. Anyway, I hope that's useful. Any comments, stick them down below. I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me know how you get on with recording with ribbon mics, whether you haven't tried it, whether you're just using SDCs. If you're looking to move towards a more vintage type of guitar sound, then this is definitely a step in the right direction. Helps if you've got old guitars as well. Right, that's it. See you in the comments. Thank you so much. Give this video a like if you can be bothered, and I'll see you soon.